was formerly a backwater planet hardly worth mentioning, had started to gain notoriety due to Earth's quick technological advancement. Recent minor skirmish victories and surprising military breakthroughs had taken the Council by surprise. It wasn't that, although Earth was by far the most developed planet, it also had an unexpected quality that may threat Counselor Threx. A sharp-featured, stern-faced creature tapped his with icy, metallic fingers on the table. He murmured, "We cannot allow this primitive planet to continue unchecked. They are very unpredictable. We have witnessed this before." The other council members nodded in agreement that if left uncontrolled, they may destabilize the entire region and cause it to adapt swiftly. And its tenacity in the face of insurmountable obstacles made it a wild card. But the council believed there was a straightforward fix: sending the cyborg assassins Threx onward. As we have, they will remove Earth's leaders, stifle its expanding power, and remind them of other troublesome planets. There was no question about the cyborg assassins' position in the universe. They were the cold, calculating, and most effective instrument available to the Council. Are these cybernetic warriors had healed entire planets. No mission had ever failed due to their flawless success rate. A small squad of cyborgs was sent into action when the Council decided there was no reason why Earth should be any different in a matter of hours. Elite assassin models were sent to Earth for high-stakes assignments. Their goal was to assassinate the main leaders behind Earth's ascent, undermine its infrastructure, and kept from growing into a superpower because the assassins were en route, and the Council turned its attention to other issues. Sure that Earth's problems will be remedied soon after all, as how could a primitive planet barely hardly a semblance of space travel compared to the most sophisticated murderous devices the galaxy has ever seen? But the Earth was not an average planet. The Council had previously misjudged it. And they were going to do so once more when the assassins sneaked into Earth's orbit. Their sleek, dark ships glide through the atmosphere like shadows, effortlessly evading all of Earth's defense mechanisms. Despite its rapid advancement, technology was still far behind the systems that the Galactic Council was in charge of. Assassins landed in various locations while evading military radars and satellites, as if they didn't exist. The globe, each aiming for a distinct military commander or powerful consider if the brains behind these unique individuals' tremendous advancements on Earth were unexpected military triumphs and the voices advocating for Earth's position in the galaxy without them. The Council thought that Earth would collapse. The first military kill was swift and silent. Renowned strategic genius commander in South America was discovered dead in his home without any indication of a struggle or witnesses. Just a quick, effective kill of the assassin departed without a trace after its mission was over in a matter of minutes. And comparable political leaders in technology and military officers were all defeated by cold calculation. With the cyborg's precision, the assassins moved like invisible ghosts and were unstoppable. Earth's leadership started to feel panicked. They knew they were being targeted, but they didn't know who or what was. From a distance, the Galactic Council observed, happy with the advancements. The mission's early phases were proceeding exactly as intactly as anticipated. Earth's power structure will soon collapse and the planet's significance would return. But something strange things started to happen, and the assassins encountered opposition that wasn't from the military of Earth, which remained mainly ignorant of the threat. Came from a different source than what the assassins could not recognize. That the technologies meant to monitor and destroy targets with perfect precision began to malfunction. Missions that ought to have gone smoothly were abruptly going awry after an assassin discovered its targeting systems. Another came across unanticipated interference in a secure structure that forced it to retreat after becoming jammed mid-mission. It should have been simple to infiltrate the Council, but initially they were unaware of, too reliant on their technology and accustomed to witnessing their assassins execute their plans without incident. But as more when the mission started to falter. They began to pay attention to reports back on Earth. Whispers about a mysterious force shielding the surviving leaders began to circulate. They weren't sure who or whatever it was, but it was obvious that someone or something was preventing them from being killed by their invisible assassins. Whatever this power was, it was giving the cyborgs built for Earth time to function in a world of reason and accuracy were unable to understand what was going on because their systems were inadequate. They struggled to cope with the chaos that seemed to be all around them and couldn't figure out why their operations were being derailed by forces they couldn't see or control. Was why flawless programming was failing. The Galactic Council, which was still adamant about its superior technology, was unaware that the capacity of Earth to adapt to new circumstances was the planet's greatest strength, not its leaders or its machinery. Transform chaos into opportunity and make advantage of the unexpected to one's benefit. The assassins carried on with their assignments, but as the malfunctions worsened, they were consistently outmaneuvered by Earth wasn't following the rules. They couldn't track something that didn't fit into their neat, rational world. And for the first time in the Council's existence, that was an issue the assassins weren't meant to handle. When a cyborg assassin's mission was not completed, the cyborg assassins touched quietly descend on Earth, their landing sites dispersed throughout the world and strategically placed to evade discovery. One person had a specific target, a pivotal character, whose removal would ensure Earth's defense and leadership. Weren't arbitrary, they were the most intelligent people, the most astute strategists, and the most powerful voices advocating for Earth's ascent in the galaxy. The assassins were designed with accuracy in mind. With cloaking devices that made them invisible to Earth's primitives, metallic forms flowed fluidly. Detection technologies, they had already started their lethal job. Nobody anticipated the savage efficiency with which assassinations were carried out. And nobody survived to see them go. It started with a powerful Eastern European general named he had been working late because of his involvement in the recent reorganization of Earth's military, never realizing that a shadow had the assassin crept into his office and silently made his way toward him. Fatal blow to the base of his skull, and there were no noises or alerts after that. Before anyone in South Asia could respond, the assassin had vanished, and the general's lifeless body had slumped over his desk. A well-known politician who advocated for Earth's admission into the galaxy suffered the same fate as she did at home. Encircled by security, yet the assassin managed to get by them with ease. With frightening ease, silenced the sirens and neutralized the politician. Similar occurrences transpired globally, as another target was removed and another victory for the Galactic Council was achieved. Important figures, military officers, and tech geniuses died quickly succession, no patterns, and no hints left for anyone on Earth. It appeared as even though these killings were unplanned, the assassins saw each one as a blow to their carefully thought-out scheme. Earth's structure impairs its capacity to protect itself or exact revenge on assassins executed their tasks with a cold, mechanical precision, eliminating every target seamlessly, and they proceeded to the next without giving it any attention. Yet, when the assassins carried out their tasks, modest problems started to appear at first. They were tiny glitches in their systems, hardly noticed, an unanticipated delay in targeting. Disruption of their cloaking systems, these were abnormalities that the assassins' programming was not intended to take into consideration. 4. But they persisted unfazed, certain that such small errors wouldn't affect their efficacy at that point. As the problems worsened, an assassin inside a strongly guarded military installation had a total system failure immediately before the target was executed. The optical sensors flashed, and it was forced to abandon the mission and retreat for the navigation systems to fail. It was the first time an assassin had failed to accomplish its goal in another location. Midway through an assassination, the target faced interference that it was unable to explain. System became disorganized, missing a crucial shot. It quickly corrected itself, but by the time it did, control the target had moved, so the assassin was forced to retreat and wait for more orders. Weren't isolated events, the assassin was having problems everywhere. The Earth, their supposed impenetrable systems were running against opposition. Something they were unable to identify or foresee was not the Earth's security or military forces generating these, however. It was something else, something that didn't make sense in the context of the cyborgs' way of thinking. The distantly observing Galactic Council wasn't immediately alarmed because they had total confidence in the assassins' talents, presuming these little losses weren't significant because, after all, the Council was not aware that the mission had ever failed or that Earth's technological capabilities were still significantly inferior. They were unaware of the true gravity of the situation and that, in spite of Earth's relative backwardness, there was an aspect it was beyond quantifiable or defeated by chilly robotic efficiency, unpredictable nature the cyborgs made for simple. High-efficiency operations were starting to show signs of their programming was unable to explain the abrupt changes in Earth's unorthodox resistance. Surroundings, the peculiar hiccups in their processes, or the presence of humans who were drawn to chaos and what was supposed to be a flawless operation was becoming much more difficult due to improvisation. When the assassins learned that Earth wasn't reacting as they had anticipated, they attempted to reorganize and adjust to the growing abnormalities. Humans were not responding as they had on other planets the assassins had targeted, that is, with panic or chaos. Instead, Earth's leadership appeared to be adjusting and getting ready after the unexpected deaths of important officials. The missions went on for reasons the assassins were unaware of, yet each time they got better resistance, their targeting algorithms were being subjected to odd variations in their cloaking systems. Disrupted by unfamiliar signals, the cyborgs' navigation systems faltered at crucial times, making it impossible for them to recognize that something else was at play, because Earth's defenses shouldn't have been able to withstand such interference. As the faults made the assassins more formidable, play something that was seeping through the gaps in their flawless design. Discovered that they were being forced to defend themselves more and more as their formerly flawless operations began to go wrong, and for the it was only an idea the first time the cyborgs faced the prospect of failure. They weren't prepared to deal with the Galactic Council, who were still observing from a distance and weren't yet aware of the entire scope of. They thought the assassins would adapt as they always had in the past, but Earth was turning out to be not only was the leadership and technology different from any other planet they had visited, but producing problems because of the chaotic and erratic method that humanity battled and the nature of the planet itself back then. The Council continued to be optimistic, but their strategy was starting to show weaknesses because Earth was not collapsing. The assassins were still active as soon as they had intended, but their flawless record was beginning to slide, and someone was seeing them from deep under Earth's shadows. Waiting for the appropriate opportunity to attack the robot killers intended for faultless performance were now confronting missions that should have been simple were becoming unanticipated challenges for reasons they could not fathom. The source of these interruptions was something much odd than anything military or technological. Earth anticipated organized defenses, but what they found was far more disorganized and challenging to forecast. The cyborgs soon heard the name being spoken and intercepted by a communications ghost. Initially, they brushed it off as unimportant, and a diversion. Ghostface seemed to be an urban legend passed along among terrified people. Yet the assassins recognized this wasn't just a fictional ghost as the interruptions increased. Ghostface was unlike anything they had. It was real, and it was pursuing them. Found it didn't function as an intelligence or military organization. It traveled through the shadows, hitting every Ghostface it encountered with accuracy and unpredictableness. The assassins discovered that their systems were malfunctioning and that, for the first time, their activities were going hunting wasn't done by assassins rather. One of the cyborgs was being pursued deep within the operation that trailed its target to an abandoned warehouse, was the first to directly face Ghostface. Sensors looking for any kind of interference, but as it closed in for the kill, its systems abruptly failed. Its targeting algorithms malfunctioned, resulting in a visual stream that was entirely static. The assassin struggled to refocus and regain control, but it was too late. The shadows, a man with a frightful mask that was well known to them, appeared. The assassin tried to attack, but the phantom face was already moving, a defying speed and agility that always struck from unexpected angles, giving the cyborg the upper hand against the assassin. Attempted to latch onto its target, but the assassin's ghost face slipped away and reappeared from a different direction. Ghost, who was designed for exacting linear combat, was constantly outwitted. Instead than using brute force or superior technology, Face relied on psychological strategies by leveraging fear, uncertainty, and unpredictable behavior were displayed by it as the assassin teased and drew it into traps that took use of the programming's very limits. The assassin was accustomed to fighting logic and order were unable to cope with the utter anarchy that Ghostface unleashed. The last error made by Cyborg was when it tried to back down after realizing it couldn't finish its objective. However, Ghostface had seen this coming as the assassin made plans to get out of its systems. Collapsed completely, making it exposed just before it was destroyed. The assassin's final visual feed showed a ghostly figure hovering above it, a blank mask on a motionless face that provided no response as the first assassin's demise sent shockwaves through the surviving cyborgs. They hadn't failed in this manner prior to Ghostface turning the tide and taking advantage of Earth's chaos. The surviving assassins, though still active, were now on edge since they had never encountered an adversary that exploited fear as a tactic. As the days went by, their programming and weapon could not make up for it. Ghostface persisted in his attacks, eliminating the cyborg assassins one by one. Ghostfaces, each more eerie than the last, didn't just ruin them, they were disassembled, piece by piece. Once unstoppable, the assassins suddenly found themselves second best as they exploited every flaw in them. They were speculating about their every move, unable to comprehend how a single thing could upset the galactic order to such an extent. Council was reluctant to respond, observing from a distance, but they continued to believe in the cyborg's dominance, assured that the assassins would adjust and get past whatever peculiar opposition they faced confronting. But the worrying reports that Ghostface had changed the assassin's strongest weapon into a cold, calculated efficiency into a weakness that the Council never thought Earth would exploit. Ghostface's unconventional methods of operation and capacity to break the law made it extremely dangerous. Assassins were accustomed to it and didn't battle for dominance, territory, or even Ghostface battled to cause disorder and disturb the assassins in order to cast doubt on their survival in the conventional sense. The assassins lost their edge in that uncertainty, and the remaining cyborgs tried to regroup in an attempt to adjust to this new threat. But each time they believed they had Ghostface under control, it escaped. Only to launch a second attack from a different angle. Ghostface took advantage of the surroundings to turn the assassins turned Earth's towns, forests, and abandoned buildings into a labyrinth where the cyborgs could never feel secure. Crafted for effectiveness, was unable to cope with the frequent changes of strategy. As additional assassins were eliminated, it became evident that Ghostface was more than just a single entity. Rather, it represented Earth's defiance, a symbol of the planet's resistance to subjugation. Ghostface had developed into more than a mere predator. For the first time, it had come to represent Earth's capacity for survival via sheer unpredictableness. The Galactic Council was now fully aware of the force that the assassins could not comprehend or control. When panic set in, they thought Earth would collapse due to their superior technology, but rather Earth had discovered a method to transform their power into a vulnerability, and Ghostface was methodically destroying the assassins were mentally and physically strong. Something the Council had never realized, that anything as human as the last assassin may bring their flawless machines toppling in a terrifying and chaotic way. As it got ready for its mission, it was aware that Ghostface was waiting for the assassin. Now, superiority went cautiously, scanning every shade and gloomy area. The assassin had never felt afraid before, but now that he knew that Ghostface may attack at any time, but in the face of an opponent, unaware that it was starting to feel something similar, Ghostface had evolved into more than merely a name passed down among Earth's survivors. It had evolved into a representation of defiance and a warning that even despite overwhelming odds, Earth was still able to strike back. The Galactic Council had misjudged human power, resilience, and unpredictable nature, and Ghostface was now demonstrating that with every day that went by. The assassins had come to Earth with the intention of removing a threat, but instead of doing so, they had came into something considerably more deadly, a power that lived in disorder and didn't follow the rules, a force that was Ghostface wasn't merely a foe, rather. It represented everything the Galactic Council hated to exist on Earth. And it was succeeding because Earth's leaders had gained light following the first spate of killings. They realized they were being attacked by something much more sinister than any known enemy. As the cyborg assassins had become more noticeable, Ghostface had made them susceptible. After realizing this, Earth changed its approach. As a new strategy took shape, the pandemonium that had first engulfed the planet started to fade. Earth would fight back, but it wouldn't be a traditional fight. Instead, Ghostface would take the lead and turn the assassins' advantages into disadvantages. Earth's military and intelligence agencies began distributing misleading information to the assassins rather than confronting them head-on. Disseminating hearsay and false information in an effort to perplex and mislead the adversary. Ghostface wasn't just one individual, but a notion that it symbolized the erratic nature of Earth, and that the world as a whole was now taking up that mindset the killers engineered for accuracy and effectiveness. Came to be pursuing shadows, unable to distinguish between fictitious targets and actual ones. Some of the brightest minds on Earth, known as hackers, started concentrating their efforts on interfering with the cyborgs' internal systems. They had been able to recover and reverse engineer some of the technology left over from earlier battles. Sufficient knowledge to take advantage of holes in the assassin programming that the formerly flawless cyborgs started their systems hacked in ways they couldn't have predicted by basic human ingenuity, leading to more frequent malfunctions. Electronic warfare, hacking, and even environmental manipulation were just getting started. To destroy one by one the most sophisticated creations of the Galactic Council, although Ghostface had initiated the work, assassins were being eliminated, and the planet as a whole was now aware of Earth's. The military employed all of the book's tricks, decoys, traps, and false information to entice the assassins into circumstances where they were unable to command a cyborg that they had previously operated with complete assurance. Required to consider if every decision it made was based on accurate data provided by its systems. Had they been hacked? Was the intended victim someone they knew, or just a cunning ruse to trick them? Squander its resources in the South American jungles. One assassin followed a senior military official only to discover that it was lured into an ambush on Earth's forces have altered the landscape to their benefit by taking advantage of the thick foliage and erratic weather patterns. The overload of assassins' advanced sensors prevented them from differentiating between the natural world and the human-made traps concealed inside as it adjusted in an effort to reclaim. Taking charge of the situation, Ghostface used the surroundings to defeat the assassin once more. Meanwhile, in the center of a vast metropolis, an additional assassin encountered an alternative form of opposition. The city's infrastructure had been compromised by Earth hackers, resulting in power disruptions and communication issues at crucial instances when the assassin's internal navigational systems failed to function or in an urban setting that should have been simple to manage. Communication was left unprotected. Ghostface coupled with using the uncertainty of the city's blackout and the cover of darkness. A tiny team of human operators managed to eradicate the brutally effective assassin as the assassins brought down the Galactic Council's confidence started to falter because Earth, a planet they had written off as unimportant, was becoming considerably harder to defeat than they had thought. Their most sophisticated technology was being undermined by the Council had depended on the accuracy and dependability of human ingenuity and sheer unpredictable nature of its cyborgs, but those advantages have turned into disadvantages for Earth's authorities. Fully conscious of the danger they were facing, they started to rally, and this gave them the advantage they required. But it was not just about eliminating the assassins, it was also about informing the Galactic Council that Earth was not a planet that could be readily subjugated. Its inhabitants prospered in disorder, adapted to their surroundings, and took surprising the very characteristics that had previously made Earth appear weak were now its greatest assets. As the number of assassins decreased, the surviving cyborgs were forced to defend themselves. And the Earth's armed forces and intelligence agencies kept chipping away at them, and they were now the hunted Ghostface. The Galactic Council's plan had the cyborgs fighting back at their numbers, each confrontation throwing them farther and further into chaos. The remaining assassins were losing control of the situation as things fell apart. Still functioning but seriously compromised attempted to reorganize, but each time they believed they had discovered a safe, Ghostface stood there, waiting the assassins, dispassionate and ready to plot their next move. Coldly effective now moved cautiously, their self-assurance destroyed. They were no longer the flawless machines they had always been. Instead, they now fear something that they were never designed to comprehend. Earth had changed the course of what started as a desperate defense in their equation, had developed into a full-fledged counteroffensive, and the dispersed and alone assassins were now simple pickings for Ghostface and the forces of humanity cooperating one by one. The cyborgs were selected, their targets evading capture, their systems malfunctioning, and their objectives failing in front of the Galactic Council observing from a distance. They were astounded by what they saw. Their omnipotent killers were being they had misjudged Earth and were now being demolished by a planet that had no business remaining this long. Paying the price meant that Ghostface and Earth were winning, not merely surviving. Had evolved into the symbol of that victory. By the time the campaign ended, there was just one assassin left, having seen the fall of its allies, witnessed how Ghostface and humanity had transformed the Earth into a shadow warfare and deception. The assassin, who was formerly an ideal killing machine, walked nervously because he knew that the Ghostface was constantly on the lookout. The planet that was meant to be simple pickings has turned into a nightmare for the cosmic. Earth had demonstrated that it was more than capable of defending against the Council's most elite warriors. Ghostface, an example of modern technology, demonstrated that the greatest strength of Earth lay not in its weaponry or technology, but rather in its unpredictable nature, adaptability, and durability after the assassins had left manipulated, outwitted, and eventually defeated. And the Galaxy Council was faced with the decision to either retreat and acknowledge the planet or keep pushing forward in the face of it. The reality Ghostface had led the way. Earth was not a place to be taken lightly. However, Earth had now risen to defend itself. The assassins were no longer there. The mission was unsuccessful and Earth stood. The last assassin emerged victorious, standing by itself after seeing its team members get eliminated one by one by a ghost. Visage and Earth's erratic strategies, its once pure and untouchable systems, were now rife with faults and mistakes. The formerly self-assured and analytical machine, now discovered Ghostface, was continuously doubting its every action. Not sure if the information it was getting was twisted or genuine, transformed all of the cyborgs' advantages into disadvantages, and this final assassin now realized the seriousness of the Galactic Council, had assumed that this was not what they had anticipated. Earth would be a straightforward operation to conquer with their best technology, subduing a primitive planet. But Earth had shown otherwise, and the Council, who were observing from a distance in their chambers, began to doubt their invincibility. Assassins had accomplished something unprecedented. They had not only lost power but also been outwitted by the last assassin, had one last assignment to survive in a world they deemed unimportant. It was no longer. Hunting it was now attempting to evade the doom that was waiting for it to vanish. The assassin understood every shadow, every signal, every face that was visible. A murmur in the atmosphere might be the spirit of an assassin who has fought in several fights throughout the galaxy. But this was not like that on Earth. Instead of an adversary it could foresee or comprehend, it was up against something much more terrifying, a power that fed off chaos, unpredictability, and terror. As the assassin traveled through the wreckage of a deserted structure, its systems sensed something but weren't sure if it was forced to follow every step, whether this was a ruse or not, was methodical and cautious in every move. But there lingered a fear that no amount of programming could eliminate. The assassin wasn't designed to experience fear, but at this particular time it was as near to it as a machine could get. Ghostface had evolved into a force of nature rather than just a hunter. Assassin discovered that Ghostface Earth had mastered both superior technology and raw might were insufficient to overcome him. Ghostface used a distinct kind of warfare that wasn't dependent on recurring trends or conventional tactics, made the entire planet a battlefield where the assassin was constantly out of its element. Step behind, the assassin realized that this wasn't the last confrontation. Fighting not simply to fulfill its mission, but also to preserve what little respect left for its founders. The Galactic Council had placed a great deal of trust in these devices, thinking that Eichel Precision's cold mechanic would win. The assassin sensed every threat now, with every glitch, every interrupted signal. That conviction had caused something they could never have, undermining the Council's ideal system. Anticipating Earth's untamed and unpredictability, the assassin surveyed the surroundings. With interference causing its sensors to flicker, Ghostface had previously employed these faults, using deceit and uncertainty to trick the assassins into falling into traps. But this time the assassin was ready for it. It adjusted its systems and forced through the static in an effort to keep a clear perspective of its surroundings. But despite its best efforts, the assassin couldn't get rid of the sensation that it wasn't a theatrical entrance. Ghostface emerged too late. In an instant, assassin responded to a silently lethal move, but its systems stumbled and took longer to react. Ghostface didn't waste any time in responding to the interference that had dogged it throughout the mission. It attacked precisely, taking advantage of the flaws it had researched and discovered from the other assassins, the Cyborgs. Cutting-edge armor and weapons were useless against a foe who knew how to transform those very strengths into weaknesses. The conflict was short, and the assassin was once the galaxy's pride. Ghostface moved with brutal efficiency, demolishing the cyborg in a moment. Council now just another casualty. In a matter of seconds, the once perfect machine was in complete disarray, its mission a total disaster. The Galactic Council, observing from a distance, could only watch the defeat happen. After returning to Earth, the dust settled and Ghostface finished its mission. Although it wasn't only about eliminating the assassins, it was also about communicating with the Galactic Council and the Earth was not a planet that could be readily subjugated by the galaxy as a whole. Instead than adhering to the same rules of battle as other civilizations, humans on Earth prospered in the unexpectedly. Ghostface personified that energy amid the tumult. And via it the Galactic Council was taken aback by Earth's victory, as it had demonstrated its ability to fend off even the most sophisticated attacks. Deployed their best assassins to conquer Earth, but they had no choice but to reevaluate their strategy. Failed miserably, the Council came to the realization that Earth was unique among planets. Its people's basic nature was what had made the difference, not merely its military might or advanced technology. Humans were erratic, flexible, and relentless, and those characteristics had made everything. The Council withdrew, realizing they couldn't afford to lose after realizing their failure. Additional resources in a protracted battle with a planet that had shown itself to be so robust that Earth had prevailed better technology or physical prowess, but thanks to his creativity and adaptability, Ghostface had led the charge. But in the aftermath, Earth's leaders realized that the victory belonged to everyone of Earth. Thought back on what had transpired, they realized they had been targeted by a force unlike anything they had ever encountered. Yet the victorious Ghostface had surfaced, demonstrating to the globe that Earth was capable of more than merely surviving. The people of Earth, united in defiance, had sent a message demonstrating their ability to thrive in the face of insurmountable circumstances. A strong declaration to the galaxy that they would not be subjugated. As the final vestiges of after the assassins were eliminated, Earth started to heal. The battle left profound wounds, but the lessons. The planet had faced an unprecedented challenge and had come out stronger as a result of the priceless lessons learned. Ghostface had become a legend and a representation of the Galactic Council's will and strength on Earth undervalued people, and they now realized that Earth was much than just a situated on the periphery of the galaxy. It was a formidable force that the rest of the galaxy would never forget. Although Ghostface had led the way, the Earthlings had actually prevailed in the conflict because they had experienced the harshest offered by Galaxy, and they had emerged victorious.